I won't see any questions from them because I don't have my YouTube page open at the same time.
Gotcha. The website's searching for Skylab.com, right? That's the... Yeah.
Yes.
I'll have to change your lower third on the... If I show stuff on the screen, it'll take a moment. So you'll be Tara for a split second while I solve that. It's always a thing.
I'm often confused with her.
Yeah, sure.
It happens in public all the time.
It's the bangs.
I have a cat in my lap right now.
That's it. That's how you do it.
If I try to lock them out, they'll just scratch at the door in the house.
Yeah, they know something's terribly wrong.
Be quiet. You understand? If I just keep it down, be nice to Daddy.
Hi, everybody out there. I know you can hear us, so like and subscribe. Hit that link. Share the show, as it were. Yes, a little free love for the trolls. Not a bad thing. I heard that one.
Did you?
Yes. That's like Chip does that outside my door sometimes.
Burgess has these anxiety attacks and he'll just start meowing for God knows what. We actually medicate him for it.
I'm looking for some sort of like elephant dart we can use on Murphy because he just talks all the time. Like you move it all in the middle of the night. Murphy's like, hey, sit you're up. Sit you're up. Hey, sit you're up. Hey, what's going on? Hey.
I was going to step on your genitals, but...
Hey, yeah, right. Well, that's Maddie's job. Yeah, that's she's the expert. Yeah, she's got nut seeking toe beads.
Nut seeking technology is really
That's
something
right.
that we try to keep in Russian. But...
Yeah, that's right. One second. There's a couple of big news pieces too. That I need to get to as well. So we'll chit chat over that as well. We don't have to be confined to our normal topic.
Sure.
Because all the documents from Trump's hush money trial have been released. Everything.
Really?
Yeah, all the text messages, all that stuff. Yeah, there it is.
Well, you're up on that right now, and I'm not. So, I mean, on that breaking story, if that's what it is.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Well, it literally is just happening. It's the prosecution's like slide presentation is now available. Like everything that they showed, it's like a TED talk of what a scheme Trump is. Heck, we got 20 minutes. People can hear us in the background anyway, so let me bring myself in real quick. Hold on one second. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. Special treat this morning. Carl Alessi is going to be joining us. Often you know him from the chat, and if you have the joy of going to a live thing in our neighborhood, because he's kind of a we're LA locals in that regard. He'll kind of come down there and he's the guy in the NASA jacket that you'll often see. And where'd he go? Oh, why did that go there? This is supposed to go there. It's supposed to go here. There you go. Hey,
That
Carl,
looks like
how are
me.
you?
I'm
Yes.
fine.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
So big news this morning, and hold on, I was not expecting to jump over to this real quick. So hold on one second. We're all doing an ad campaign for Tara for the moment. And her window is much smaller, so I'll move you down so you can. This is, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be talking about this a little bit later, but this is all the slides from the prosecution's case in the Donald Trump hush money trial, where that resulted in the first guilty verdict of a former president of the United States, and it's all online. Some of the phone numbers have been redacted, but the time, date, what was said, all that stuff, how the plot started, where it was written. There's Keith Davidson and Michael Cohen on this particular thing. This is the call recording transcript that they use, and I'd like to draw your attention to those moments, right? Michael, what about me? And I can't even tell you how many times he said to me, I hate the fact that we did it. And my comment was every person you've ever spoken to told you it was the right move, whatever they were relating to in that moment. These are things around the campaign. It's from Trump Think Big. As a matter of fact, I value loyalty above everything else, more than brains, more than drive, and more than energy. Right, because if you're trying to keep a criminal secret, I can see why. I'd rather have a stupid guy who can keep his mouth shut, which is essentially like the mob talk he engaged in. So I will be going through this over the course of the day. Here's the Karen McDougal section, how they arranged the payments to her. This is everything that they showed, and there's a lot of it. And that's not the only thing, by the way. Thanks to our dear friend Mark Kremer, who grabbed this, if I may. Ted Cruz, it says someone presumably a staffer, left a folder full of briefing documents on Ted Cruz's donors in the Senate refectory. Refectory? Okay. They left basically a folder of his donors and his donor meetings, his schedule for donor meetings, on a chair, and just walked away. And it lists everybody he's meeting with, little bios on them, and how much money he's supposed to ask them for. And so this one's on Fundraising Inc. letterhead. He's meeting he's going to the Capitol Grill tonight at 7:30 to meet with 8 donors who pledged $19,500 but paid none. So these folks have been pledging stuff, but they haven't given it. So he's having dinner to ask them why. I'm going to guess because Trump got convicted. Maybe that's it. He's going to Cipriani from noon to 1:30. Very smoke-filled room, Carl. Very smoke-filled. Cipriani. In New York City. He's meeting with Louder Ronald. After lunch with Louder Ronald, he'll meet with the Knickerbocker BG. He'll head to the Knickerbocker BG in Greenwich Village to meet with Sonoma Loeb Wines from 2 to 3. Yeah, sure. He's going to be drunk off. He'll be slurring his voice. That I got to say, Ted Cruz exemplifies the alpha male of Texas, and nothing more about him than his after-school special bully voice from 1975. Like that kind of he's got this squeezy, I don't know why, kind of why this is exemplary of, Donald, you're a sniveling coward, and I don't know how you could sound weaker saying those things, right?
You took the words right out of my mouth. That was the quote I thought of.
Yeah, wouldn't you, honestly, wouldn't that put some bass in your voice?
Well, it would if you had evidence something in character that would give you bass in your voice. Let's put it that way.
Well, if you actually gave a crap. Yeah, that's true. Okay, now on with what we're going to talk about. We've mentioned it before, but there is a website called, this is from Skylab Shop, but Searching for Skylab is a movie that Carl has been a part of and been kind of helping to elevate its profile, and I love it. And the subtitle of it is America's Forgotten Triumph. That's what it was. America's Forgotten Triumph. And it's when you and I talk, we get into these kind of nerdy NASA things because Carl is my go-to expert for all things space, and in particular, if you get on about Apollo or the Gemini stuff, he'll bum me out by telling me that that some of my favorite parts of First Man are kind of conglomerate scenes. Damn it!
Damn it, Carl!
Yeah, damn it, Carl! Can't you just let me have nice things?
I know. I take those
yes.
away. I give them to you at Christmas, and then I take them away at Boxing Day.
It's
Shame
terrible. Yeah, and for the record, though, Summer is a huge NASA head. My girlfriend, for those that don't know, went to space camp when she was a kid in Florida, and because of the movie Space Camp, which you can't find anywhere, right? I don't know why it's not available on any of the streaming services, but it isn't. And it's about a bunch of kids who go to space camp and they get to sit in the shuttle as it's going to go through a launch test. And then something goes south and they have to launch or it'll blow up. And then they end up in space and they have to pilot it back down and work as a team when they were, it's great. It's a super fun, but ridiculous. It's one of those absurd concepts. It's less absurd than weird science, I would say. So but more absurd than real genius.
Yeah, it's not as unbelievable as a zombie movie, certainly.
Certainly. Any zombie movie that lasts more than 3 days. Yeah.
After which, of course, things decay and begin to smell a bit.
Yeah, well, that's when the maggots will land on all the connective tissue that the zombies would use to actually be ambulatory, and therefore...
I just remembered, I forgot to have breakfast.
Sorry, I should bring up... I'll wait till to bring up maggots after noon during lunch. Anyways,
anytime,
it's... Where do you want to start, Carl? There's so much going on in just the landings and the takeoffs lately. Yeah. Yeah,
well... it's ironic that we had so many delays in the CST-100 spacecraft and getting it off the ground. And now that they have it off the ground and docked to the space station, they've got delays in wanting to land it. And the latest target date to have it come down is actually a week from today now. Mm-hmm. They want additional time to go through some checks on the RCS system, their reaction control system, and do some other tests on it because this is a test flight after all. And so we have to wait a little bit longer. Right.
Sorry, I was looking for the this is for those who don't know, it's the CST-100 Starliner is the sort of Apollo retro-y Apollo capsule system. I mean, it's not obviously, but it looks like it to the layman, and there's kind of a beauty to that. It's like a like the guys building Gemini and Apollo and who are working on these types of capsules are like, man, I wish ours looked like that. Ours looked like a tin drum covered in tin foil compared to that thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of that technology from the 60s that's still valid today in terms of what is your best shape to get out of the atmosphere and what's your best shape to get back down through it and to re-enter and to have control of the vehicle while you do. So that kind of conical shape like that actually works out rather well.
It was brilliant, right? There's not much.
This bad boy is good for 10 flights. They can reuse it over and over again. And it also, unlike Apollo, has thermal blankets on it, which are similar to the ones that you had on the shuttle to be able to reject heat and insulate it. But this one is also going to land on land. You had a photo of it up there a second ago where the airbag's underneath deployed. It drops its main heat shield, then it comes down. They target it for white sands, but they have some backups in Arizona and in Utah as well.
Yeah. And hi, chat room. Good morning. How are you guys? Yes, we're talking space right out of the gate, and then we'll Philip Bittner will be joining me second hour to deal with not just the kind of what's going on in Ukraine, but also the kind of overlap with U.S. politics in that as well. But it's hump days, and we can do what we want. And we already saw the check to Karen McDougal already. So there you go. I'll flash some leg at you, news-wise, every so often. But yeah, and this is one of 3 designs. I want to say 3 different companies that are kind of working on their own part of all this, like different stages. Have they divided them up?
Yeah, there are these
Hold on.
major programs.
I turned the audio off. That's the background. There you go. The spacesuits. They also showed the new spacesuits, which are very cool.
Oh yeah, I mean that's one thing that's also changed from the old days in the '60s. You don't see the astronauts waddling out to the van anymore in these pressurized suits because they don't have to be purged of nitrogen from their systems by breathing pure oxygen. We don't do that anymore. We have a multi-gas system in the space station and in our spacecraft. And so it's more like Earth and more like what we've been accommodated to for several million years of evolution. So yeah, they walk out in these nice spacesuits that zip up. They're not pressurized when they go out to the pad, but they can be during launch if there's an emergency, when there's a decompression event, if that were to happen.
Right. That's the test rocket. That's the test landing, so they can land on ground. There's all sorts of hold on. Let me see if they. Yeah, here's the suits that they end up talking about in these things. That's the rather phallic.
They all are.
Yeah, but some of them are more so than others. But these are the suits. I like the hands, the elbows akimbo look of this.
Yeah,
whatever.
you know what? What's kind of interesting, that suit has a bit of a predecessor in one suit they used in the Gemini program for Gemini 7. Those guys got stuck inside of Gemini 7 for 14 days in something the size of, a Volkswagen seat, 2 of them. And they're in there with everything, including everything that they eat and everything they excrete and everything else. They're in there for that time. So what they had were zip-up suits. They had zip-up helmets. And then a hard crash helmet that they wore underneath that. So there's a little bit of a predecessor to that there, and that's what this suit is like.
Yeah. I love
the zip-up helmet.
Yep, stick your arms out like this. Pose for us. I guess this is the, I don't know, this part of it, seals or whatever. Anyways, it's getting way cooler is my point. In the White Room. Yeah, and then this is the other thing, too, is that this is so this is so ridiculously fun. This is them testing the landing. Now obviously this is related in some ways to the AI stuff we talk about on Fridays, that all of this is happening. There's a quickening going on at NASA because of the amount of virtual experiments they're able to run. And then they'll do these guys are old school, so they'll really, they're not going to skip the real world testing, but they can rely on the numbers quicker and they can crunch the numbers quicker and more thoroughly because of that. And, like I said, Summer and I went there. We went to Johnson Space Center, a couple of months ago, and the advances they're making in their robot, at that point they were really kind of clunky working on it, and weeks later the thing is no, I can balance myself, I'm cool. That's what they're dealing with, so it's pretty amazing. And
in the testing phase, by the way, interestingly enough, if you're talking about NASA, you're talking about Boeing, there's a lot of testing that's always done in advance to try to get it right by the time you fly. And that's very different from SpaceX. They just test to destruction. They'll fly, they'll see what breaks, comes apart, analyze the data, and go, okay, we're going to turn out another one next week, and we'll fly again and see what we learn from that.
Right. And a lot of it is, here's his, and it's very the premise of SpaceX is the sort of show of space. He's trying to make space look like space from movies, right? That's part of what they do, including, their EVA suit that they're working on. Which, by the way, I don't know that they've used it yet. They haven't done an EVA in the Polaris. Yeah. And And so a lot of it's sort of for show, as is a lot of things with Elon Musk. But yeah, there you go. And the whole thing about there is on the path to rapid reusability, and that goes to the sort of waste aspect that NASA was always accused of. You can only use these rockets once back in the day, and that's just because they were based on missile technology, and missiles aren't meant to be reused.
Yeah, they're called expendable launch vehicles.
That's right.
And so that's exactly what we came from. There was a desire to be able to do different iterations of that. There was an attempt back in the 80s and the 90s, in particular, McDonnell Douglas, to build something called single stage to orbit. So you didn't expend a stage like a first stage. You had one stage that got you into orbit, but that never really worked out, unfortunately.
Yeah,
but yeah, there it goes. 18 million pounds of thrust, man. That's a lot of power. And what's interesting in those shots, if you look at them, especially in slow-mo, I don't know. Yeah, look in the upper right. There are shock waves going out into the Gulf of Mexico coming off that thing that are spreading out into the Gulf. I don't know if you can see it at this resolution.
Yeah, absolutely. There's like these white waves of of mist, essentially. And you can see all the rockets underneath there, like all the multiple engines.
All but one. One quit immediately. Because there's such an enormous acoustic shock coming out of that thing when it departs the pad like that. Right. And they've got a water suppression system, but they don't have a flame trench underneath it, which I think from Elon Musk's point of view would require a little bit too much collaboration with the Army Corps of Engineers to build it and license it. So anyway, that reverberation kind of comes up and can kill some of those Raptor engines that you've got down there. There's, I think, 32 of them, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, there's a bunch. And then let's see. Well, they cut it off before them. This is their test flight. The fourth one. But then there's I wanted to talk about, like, is it Blue Origin? I'm blasting the name on it right now.
That's right. Bezos.
Yeah,
Mr. Bezos.
Which is the sort of the most successful in terms of flights by civilians so far, right? They've sent more people up.
I don't have a count on that per se, but of course you've also got Virgin Galactic that's been launching in their small space plane into suborbital flights as well with civilians. So you've got that. But these are suborbital flights we're talking about, the hop up and then back down again with William Shatner and people like that in something called the New Shepard.
Yep.
Where this gets more exciting is what you're showing now, the New Glenn, which is a heavy lifter orbital rocket, which is coming up hopefully pretty soon. So we're looking forward to that. That's where we begin to really make progress.
And I particularly like that they're naming them after the astronauts. Glenn and
yes,
Shepard.
They are. John Glenn and Alan Shepard.
Yeah. As opposed to this kind of like the names that Elon Musk gives them, which are sort of like, they sound like energy drinks most of the time. Like he's trying to come up with, he's either branding a new version of Monster or
New Coke.
New Coke, right? And this is we can contact sales if we want to see how much it costs. What is it, $100,000?
The branding is a little bit beyond me, but they do have a nice blue feather on there. You'll notice.
Right. That's is that a there's Bill. There's Bill Shat.
Yeah, looking out the window.
And that's the blue feather you're talking about, the black feather on the blue outfit in the background.
Yeah,
which
you
of
can
course
barely make it out there, but yeah, you'll see it up the side of the rocket as well.
Yeah, is that a Forrest Gump reference, or I'm just
doubtful. I frankly, I'm not sure why they chose it. If you want to know the truth, but there you go.
It's on the there it is on the rocket itself. It's painted on there as like curls around the outside of it. Yeah, fully reusable and carbon free. That's right. And then that's where they land. And then there's the New Shepard flight history. That's this guy, which will be here.
For New Shepard, we've been following an aggressive step-by-step approach from the beginning. The first time we flew New Shepard, we demonstrated every single aspect, re-entry.
It's interesting that different than the Apollo-ish kind of look of the ones that are meant to go to space. This one really does have like a viewing dome sort of size, like shape to it, right?
Yeah, it looks like something that's built for a Disney ride, frankly, in terms of your
Yeah,
ability to see out of that thing. It really,
that's
really
right.
does.
Yeah.
It's not.
And
It doesn't have to shield itself from high heat loads when it comes down. I mean, it's almost like a balloon coming down rapidly, if you will,
right,
from a relatively low altitude and relatively slowly. So they
right.
can take some liberties in that regard that are perfectly safe.
That was the pad escape test. In case the rocket goes south, you can eject the people off the top of it, and high enough.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something
But
Starship does not have, which worries me. It's always worried me quite a bit, especially with these exotic landing techniques that they use,
right.
where you've got the belly flop and then it has to come directly upright and then land and stay in that position. And everybody lives. And if it doesn't work perfectly, it's going
Nobody
to be
lives.
what the Rocketeers call a bad day.
Yeah. Yeah. But it is it's clearly built for the view. Right? It's clearly built. You can see there's like multiple windows. Like they end up getting up. They're suborbital, but it looks like you're in space for all practical purposes when you get up that high.
Yeah, you
Um,
actually are. I mean, you get above
yeah.
something called the von Karman line, which is 100 kilometers, or what that equates to is about 62 miles. And once you're up above that, you are officially in space at that point. You're just not
Yeah.
orbital. You don't have that
Yeah.
velocity.
Right. Yeah. It's like Blue Origin. Like this part of it, I think, is going to whipsaw around the other the SpaceX stuff. And that seems to be what's happening even with NASA. There seems to be a sort of a distrust and a stiff arming of SpaceX. And they're moving more towards like their own designs, and then if they're partnering for commercial stuff with Bezos and his team because they're more
Yeah.
trustworthy
Hmm.
and
Well,
they're more safety conscious and all that kind of stuff.
yeah, the larger discussion on this one, I think, is interesting because what we're really seeing in the last few decades up through now is this evolution of something that has really been typified in American history, frankly, in capitalism. And that is that you can have the government that does not have a profit-making incentive
Hmm.
or imperative lead the way and fund these exploratory measures, going
Yeah.
into orbit, going to the moon, and spending money on it. And then what eventually follows as the technology matures is that private enterprise can go off more or less on their own with some government assistance still and start exploiting it for commercial capabilities. We saw that with everything from the Erie Canal to the Panama Canal, the
To the
Transcontinental Railroad.
and also the highway system. I mean, essentially, the highway system is a conduit for trucks more than just a way for people to go on long car trips. It is
Yeah.
more. It is, the importance of building, consistent heavy duty roads coast to coast had a lot to do with making sure that that bigger and bigger trucks could carry bigger and bigger loads without collapsing or falling off of like the sort of like cliffside roads you see in South America that everybody always freaks out about when you're like, I had to take a bus through this area and the bus goes down like 80% of the road is dirt and there's no guardrail. There's a reason why you build these cross-country roads is so that business can build on that and people can build their businesses on it and all that kind of stuff. And a bit of Army trucks. Doug says Army trucks. That was a bit of it as well. Certainly transporting military stuff as well.
You know why the federal interstate system was funded through Eisenhower, right?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it was to have the capability to move munitions and personnel and everything else in the event of a Cold War and a nuclear attack.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
So they
that's
could bug
why
out.
it was constructed.
Yep.
And now we get to drive on it to go to vacations and to comedy gigs and anything else you need to do.
That's right. That's right. And the reason I was bringing this up is because NASA has selected Blue Origin as the second second Artemis lunar lander provider. That's this little piece of news right here, which again has a lot to do with their focus on safety, and I think, quite frankly, they just trust Bezos's company more than they trust Elon Musk. There's It's, you know, the interpersonal, the buying of Twitter may have burned him out of the space race long term, where he was on a trajectory to run it, essentially, to be like the primary, and they can't get away from him fast enough.
Yeah, this is important. I mean, there is a good reason to doubt that Starship is going to be available successfully for lunar landings anytime soon. Maybe not ever. I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball for that kind of thing, but I can tell you that, again, we don't know when they're going to reliably even get it into orbit with human beings that they can get down and land successfully, let alone get to the lunar surface. One of the things they're going to have to do, for instance, when they fly this thing, is they're going to have multiple in-orbit refuelings of it to depart Earth orbit to get it to the moon and get it to the surface. I mean, I've seen estimates that could be anywhere from a dozen to as many as 20 refuelings before it can actually make it to the moon. That's a lot of refuelings for something we've really never done before. You know, with liquid oxygen and liquid methane, which are the engines that are used on the Raptors on those vehicles.
Right. And for that's the SpaceX system.
That is correct. That's Starship.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
so
bizarre.
yeah, and it's tall, and I mean, bloody hell. I mean, I hope that thing is stable when it comes down. But you know, you look at it and go, is this going to fall over when it hits and when it lands on the moon? Because it doesn't look terribly stable to me.
Yeah. Right. Well, and then the agency previously contracted SpaceX to demonstrate an initial human landing system for Artemis 3 mission. Under the contract, the agency also directed SpaceX to evolve its design to meet the agency's requirement for sustainable exploration and to demonstrate the lander on Artemis 4. As a result of the contract with Blue Origin to demonstrate an Artemis 5 a lander that meets the same sustainable lander requirements, including capabilities and increased crew size, longer mission duration, and delivery of more mass to the moon, multiple providers will be available to compete for future opportunities to fulfill NASA's lunar surface access needs for Artemis mission. So this is them diversifying to get away from Elon Musk.
Yeah, I can see that, and I think that's a good thing.
I agree. I don't think they can get out of it. And you watch, I think the transition will be Elon Musk signs a deal with Russia to launch from the Kazakhstan launching site where they used to where Soyuz used to go from.
And it still does.
Yeah. Well, for the time being, yes. I know we still have the contracted space on it or whatever, but I guess we have to use it, which is odd. But that's also something we're trying to solve as quickly as possible.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons, again, for the Starliner flights that Boeing is flying, to be able to diversify between them and SpaceX so that we have our own robust capability back to orbit again, which we did not have following the shuttle retirement for several years. Right. And that's a bad place to be, to rely on the Russians for all of that. Another thing we're doing, by the way, that rocket that launched the Starliner, the Atlas V, that uses a Russian engine in the first stage. And so one of the things that's happening is, in order to get away from that, because you can't just replace the engine with an American design, is we're actually bringing online a whole new rocket called the Vulcan. And the Vulcan will be all American made. It will replace the Atlas V. And again, a large motivation for that is to get away from dependency on the Russians.
Also, it's a very logical decision. I'm just saying.
Yes, understandably. I quite agree. So there you go. We'll give the neck pinch to Putin with that one.
That's right. Now, I don't know if I've ever expressed to you my personal theory on how the Vulcan nerve pinch works.
I don't think you have.
Yeah.
Nor have you demonstrated it on me, so let me know.
That's right. You'll recall McCoy called him a green-blooded fool a couple of times, and he would use green blood. Okay, one of the reasons why Vulcans have green blood is they are copper-based instead of carbon-based like us, and so their blood system, when their blood, when it oxygenates and is carrying oxygen, it's green, or greenish at the very least. And so that's where that comes from. Well, that also makes them highly electrically conductive compared to a human being. So what they effectively can do is just create a bridge point between 2 points in your nervous system and basically short you out. And so the place they touch you isn't about the pinch, it's about connecting two nerves that make your body flip out. In the same way that if you're punched in a fight, you know, and you bean somebody right on this point or right on the chin, it knocks them out because your nervous system freaks out. That's what it is. It's basically, instead of using force to do that, they use a mild electrical charge.
So would it be entirely practical to take this cell phone, rest
Yes.
it on his forehead, and charge
And
it?
it would charge overnight. Sure. Yeah, yeah. Although
You know,
he might not
you're
wake up
fine.
because you might use his charge up. I don't know how it works. You know what I mean? I think there's probably a law on Vulcan about using people, as a battery. Yeah.
It could be, yeah. I mean, they have better things to do anyway.
I don't know that they do. They're the most logical, advanced society amongst all of us in the future, and yet they still kind of live in like King Arthur-ish kind of robe-ish clothing. Maybe that's the advancement. Maybe you get so advanced at some point, right? Maybe you get like societies get so advanced, because I've often thought this. What is the difference in a mythological story, like a fantasy film or a fantasy book, where someone finds the gem of Artemis that we dig up and you put it into the headpiece of the staff of Ra? I'm mixing my calm down. And if you stand in the right place and you slam it on the ground, the doors to the gold chamber open. What's the big leap from? Has anybody seen my keys? The garage door opener is on them, because that's pretty close. Like to a person from the 1800s, much less the 1400s. If you could just palm your garage door opener and go, and the door just kind of opens magically, or even worse, have them try to lift it. Hey, can you open that door for me? It opens from the bottom. You can see the handle, and they're like, it won't come up, and you're like, let me do it.
I don't know. All I can think of is that when you brought up Raiders, all I can think of is the tune playing in my head. I am the monarch of the sea.
The sea. Yes. A British man is a soaring soul, as free as the mountain. But his energetic fist is ever to resist a dictatorial, or something like that. You gotta love Sala.
Yeah,
Indeed.
that's an imperative.
I'm so glad you're not dead. It's one of my two funniest lines.
Very dangerous. You go first.
You go first. Yeah, he's got two of the funniest lines in the whole movie. I'm so glad you're not dead. And then like his, when the lightning strikes and there's the statue of Ra there or whatever, Cyrus. Yeah. Whoa, calm down. Yeah. Who knows?
Also made a great.
Even you
dwarf
might
in
be
Lord of
worth
the Rings.
something. Yeah, son of a bitch.
Hey, while we're talking about show business, I'm going to say,
Yeah.
now it's my turn to segue. You got your segue, and here's my segue.
All right.
Do you know what the 1 degree of separation is between Jack Black and the Apollo program?
No, I don't. Yeah, no.
Okay. His mother was an engineer for TRW and worked on the abort guidance system for the lunar module.
In LA, at the TRW site in LA. That's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And of course, for those of you who don't know, and I'm sure that's most of you because you're not a geek like I am, the abort guidance system was the backup computer that the lunar module had and was used whenever the primary computer wasn't either available for brief instances of time or deselected in the case of Apollo 13, because in Apollo 13, that primary computer consumed a lot more power, generated more heat, needed more cooling, and they decided that the abort guidance system was sufficient for being able to work out what's called the state vector. So they used that on the return trip home, and that's something that Jack Black's mother had a lot to do with.
Nice. Obviously, clearly part of a Freemason plot to control the world and not let us realize that it's flat, and that if you keep walking in any direction, you will eventually hit an ice wall that is guarded by men in black, and just over the ice wall, it's paradise.
I thought I was going to find all the crap my cat knocked off the counter.
Yeah, that's paradise. Yeah, that's what I was saying. It's the same thing.
Paradise for a cat.
Yeah. All your pens and sunglasses Heaven is where all the pens and sunglasses
And batteries.
Right. That's right. Damn it. There's always one. All right. Yeah. So the one thing, by the way, I want to remind everybody to check out. Here you go. If I can, I'll bring this guy up. If it's big enough, there you go. Searching for Skylab. This is the patch you can get, by the way, for the movie itself. There you go.
And by the way, I kudos again to Dwight for naming it that and doing that, because Dwight is an Australian. So he's given us credit for that.
Oh, I see. Gotcha. Is that Australia in the background? Is that how he snuck it in?
Well, he had reason to do so if he did, beyond his nationality, because that's where Skylab largely crashed. A lot of its debris came down in Western Australia.
Which is, Central Australia is home to the largest U.S. military base in the world.
Oh, really? Which one is that?
The one you can't see on Google. It is allegedly, I don't know, it's in Queensland. Hold on. Now I have to go look it up. Damn it. Military.
It's Area 51B.
That's exactly what it is. Oops. Biggest. See if I can find the piece on it. Yeah. It's in this footprint. I'll see if I'll have to find it and post the thing about it. These are all just the northern ones. Where are you, you silly thing? But in basically, we used a big chunk of the desert over there with their permission. Oh, and by the way, this is kind of related or whatever. But the AUKUS agreement that Biden created essentially and has aligned Australia and the U.S. and England on these nuclear subs that they're going to do so that they can protect Taiwan and the South China Sea against Chinese hegemony in the South China Sea specifically. They're adding even more new bases in Australia. Largely overlooked last week's announcement of the U.S.-Australia nuclear-powered submarine deal, powered, by the way, not armed. Powered, not armed. Nuclear-powered subs, not armed. For all the people who were rending garments back then too. The deal is the fact the U.S. government plans to build new U.S. military bases down under. In September 16th press conference, Australia Defence Minister Peter Dutton announced plans to establish new facilities for naval, air, and ground forces with combined logistics, sustainment capability for maintenance support of our enhanced activities, including for our submarines and surface combatants and rotational deployments of all types of U.S. military aircraft to Australia. All types of U.S. military Space Force. All right. So.
Beloved Space Force. I'm glad to hear they're down there.
Get Space Force down there. It's fantastic. So I want everybody to check out that. Now, I don't know. I'm curious. Thanks, Mark. Mark Crever's been trying to use AI to make pictures of me doing stuff, and that none of them look like me. They all look like a guy who says he's my cousin. You know what I mean? Who isn't by any stretch? You're like, you just got the haircut, mate. So
it's funny. Rob Glenn, right? Who you have on Fridays. He has, I swear to God, a doppelganger. There's a guy I used to work with years ago who looks just like him, talks just like him, has the same voice he has.
Right.
It's eerie to me when I see and hear him, because I keep thinking he's this guy I worked with a few years ago who's in IT. Anyway, sorry for that.
No, not at all. So in regards to him, I feel like I should, let's see, choose. Hold on, is this it?
Hey there, great to meet you. Yeah, I'm Pi.
Hold on.
Hey there, great to meet you. I'm Pi, your personal AI. My goal is to be useful,
There it is.
friendly, and
Excellent.
fun. Ask me for advice, for answers. Or
There
let's
we
talk
go.
about whatever's on your mind. How's your day going?
How's your day going? She's so laid back. Give me a rundown of the next few NASA missions. I'm just curious if she can even do. Whoops, sorry. Why is it not doing it? Give me a.
Sure thing. Here's a summary of the upcoming NASA missions. Bepi Colombo ESA mission to Mercury, 4th flyby scheduled for September 5th, 2024. Europa Clipper, launch of NASA, Jupiter orbiter to study Europa, October 10th, 24. Starliner's delayed return. Boeing's Starliner capsule is currently on its first human mission to the ISS, but the return to Earth has been delayed until June 26th due to thruster troubleshooting and a scheduled spacewalk. Pretty exciting stuff, right?
She's so smart and dreamy.
I know. Jeez.
Yeah.
She could sing a song and let me go to sleep at night.
Yeah. Can you write a poem for my friend Carl, who is a huge fan of NASA?
Oh, this is going to be fun.
Yeah.
Sure thing. Here's a poem for Carl, a fellow space enthusiast. Carl, my friend, there's something you know of stars above and the sky's glow. From Mercury's rise to Neptune's reign, you've seen it all through NASA's lens frame. With telescopes peering into space's deep, you've watched comets pass and galaxies leap. From moon's craters to Jupiter's storms, your passion for space has always been warm. Like Carl Sagan, you've pondered the stars, dreaming of worlds both near and far. With NASA's rockets, rovers, and probes, your knowledge of space forever grows. So here's to Carl, a true fan indeed. Let's toast to your passion and NASA's lead. Together we'll explore, discover, and learn, for in space exploration our hearts forever burn.
I really
hope Carl
appreciate
enjoys
the Carl
the
Sagan
poem.
reference. Oh, she's not.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she said, I hope Carl enjoys the poem. He loved it. Thanks.
Yes. Yeah, I did.
Awesome. I'm glad Carl enjoyed the poem. Oh, if you or Carl ever want to chat about space or need anything else, don't hesitate to ask. I'm always here to help.
I love how she hesitates at don't hesitate to ask.
Yeah, it's a little bit like this movie where the
hesitate
three
to ask.
astronauts were killed in the hibernaculums and the other one was killed out on a ZBA. And
All right.
we don't know. She seems very, very pleasant, but on the other hand, she just might get a little testy one day.
Don't start with that's my namesake you're talking about there.
I know. I got you that T-shirt that has it. Remember?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that
I
shows
know.
that.
I wore it at in Seattle when we were sound checking for Sexy Liberal.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So that's somebody like teared up at her. Don't test her. That's true. The nice thing is, and I find it very impressive that when I asked for give me a rundown of the next few NASA missions, she didn't just focus on the sort of human ones. She's talking about the stuff that NASA does on the regular, which is probes and exploration, which is
unmanned stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, the unmanned stuff, which is an outsized part of their actual mission most of the time. This is something they're doing consistently beyond satellites, right?
Yeah, the Europa Clipper in particular is going to be fascinating. Europa, is shrouded in ice, and it is thought that there is an under ice ocean that underneath all of that, and that could be teeming perhaps with life. We don't know. The constituents for life are there, but we want to find out more about it. So that mission is going to be particularly fascinating.
Yeah, so this is the one we're talking about. This is their scientists are almost certain a vast ocean lies beneath Europa's icy shell. In 2024, the journey begins. Clipper is being crafted with one overarching goal: determine if Europa harbors conditions suitable for life. And why Europa is the water, the chemistry, and the energy. That's what they think it looks like underneath, which would be just friggin' crazy amazing.
If you roll it over, it tells you to ask again.
Right, yes. Right. Yeah. It is certain. Right.
It took you a second there, but...
It did. Because I thought this was a graphic you had seen before. So I was like, yeah. It's if you roll it over, they talk about. Yeah, there it is. Chemistry for life relies on elements that are common in the universe. Speak for yourself. For Europa to be habitable, it needs the essential building blocks for life: carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and sulfur. There you go. Energy, that's what is coming. Here it is. And join us. Join us, Carl.
Mhm.
And then this is the actual Clipper. Let's see if they can show, yeah. There she is. And we can, yeah.
Hey, how about
Man,
that Voyager 1 while we're at it? Billions of miles away, and they were able to fix it remotely so that it's
Yeah.
fully functional again.
Right. So that well, because they don't want it to become a godlike force in the future that nearly destroys all humanity.
That was
Because
Voyager 6, which never existed,
V'ger,
otherwise known as V'ger.
yeah.
We were talking about Star Trek: The Motion Picture, folks. But those of you who wonder why in the
Yeah.
hell we ever drifted off into
No,
that.
no, don't explain them. If they don't know, they don't deserve to know, Carl. But I love that we have like a little flying saucer attached to the bottom of it. This is, I suppose, this is to
That's
be,
a detachable lander
yeah,
with a heat
right.
shield on it. Yeah.
Yeah, so that it can, in case something goes south, you can save what was learned, and it isn't
It
wasted.
looks rather similar to aeroshells that we've used on Martian landers, like Curiosity,
Right.
for instance. Yeah, it's very similar in shape for good reason.
Mm-hmm. This is the SUDA. There's the EIS. This is the MEIS system. Let's see what that is. The environmental testing unit. This is it. You can look at it. There's the design, in case you want to 3D print your own.
Hmm.
I have to say, like, the NASA guys have figured this stuff out. This is just money. Just being able to like look at this thing from all angles and decipher the parts of it, and just, I mean, talk about like just open source. You know what I mean? Just being
everything.
Yeah.
You know, there's not a lot of secrets from NASA. I mean, it's a public entity in the government and has been since its founding. Its predecessor likewise existed to foster aeronautical technology, the NACA. So this stuff is all out in the open for anyone to take advantage of, including private enterprise.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing too, and that's where I get, if you'll pardon my point of order, Mr. Chairman, but that's where my biggest fuck you to Elon Musk goes, which is this idea that he acts like he built this thing from scratch, and when he's relying on all the testing, all the exploration that came beforehand, and whenever he talks about something, not only is he not the scientist that works on it. He's got other people doing it, and he's really just the money man pretending he knows what the fuck is going on. But every time he talks about something, I want to do the Obama, you didn't build that, because he didn't. Like, NASA did all the testing, and U.S. astronauts did all the dying and the experimenting in this. You know what I mean? And for him to just go, yeah, it's going to kind of come in here using all the, all the schematics, all the math, all the, the lessons learned, and just acting like, we think we're smarter than they are. You're like, no, you're not. You get to use their mistakes and pretend you didn't have any. And then when you have mistakes, you can you realm it into like, well, it's just not possible yet, or with the current fabrication or whatever. Like, well, that's exactly why the original NASA stuff had the same problem.
Yeah, to wrap that up in context, I mean, look, the SpaceX guys, they have done an amazing job in terms of the Dragon spacecraft, in terms of the Falcon 9, the Falcon Heavy. All that stuff is amazing, reliable technology, and we're going to be using that for years and years and years to come. There's no doubt about that.
Right.
But keep in mind that none of that would have existed had it not been through a couple of key programs launched during the Obama administration, the Commercial Crew Program, and also something called the Commercial Orbital Transportation Services Program, or COTS, which is for cargo. Without that kind of program, without that kind of funding, without actual NASA resources like using NASA and Air Force launch pads, they would have literally never gotten off the ground.
Right.
So let's make sure that there is no FU NASA that's legitimate when you're talking about SpaceX, not even to this day.
Right. But to him is my point. And also, the same thing is true of Tesla. Tesla wouldn't exist if Obama hadn't put, and Biden specifically, hadn't put stuff in the auto bailout, that gave seed money to electric car companies.
Yes, exactly.
It would have been a novelty vehicle company for decades.
I hear they actually saved a lot of auto companies at one point.
Yes, they did. When someone named Donald Trump didn't actually want it to happen. Now we're at the end of the hour, and Phil's going to be joining us in a minute. And I want to thank you, Carl, for being with me today. I also want to remind everybody to go check out the documentary. Hold on, let me see if I can bring the graphic up. It's Searching for Skylab, and it's searchingforskylab.com is the website. And I have to say the website is it seems to be from the era that Skylab existed. I'm just going to say, especially after looking at all the cool NASA stuff. Yeah. Yes, you can eat popcorn, watch a movie, and have a lot of fun and learn a lot. This is true. The U.S. Space and Rocket Center loves this movie. It did, it's done very well in its short life so far, and it's worth a view. I just want to make sure everybody gets
thank you for that too.
A look at it. Yeah, there you go. And Carl, at some point, what I would like to do, if you're up for it, and it's not at 4 a.m., when one of these launches that looks like it's actually going to happen is going on, I might pop on live at random, not on a regular show, and see if you're available. We can kind of watch one of the launches together and nerd out.
Oh, that would be cool. Sure.
Yeah, I see all the people at NASA who do that while they're waiting for the launch, see if there's a delay, all that kind of stuff. And I'm always a little bit jealous. I'm like, can they just let a comedian in there? I would love, if I could, to just interject little fun things in there. If I would, I would keep it, because it's NASA and I have respect for them, I would keep it within the bounds of good taste. You know what I mean?
Of course.
I would not wear my, yes, I would not wear my, F. Elon Musk shirt or anything like that. So, anyway, so thanks so much, Carl. Appreciate it.
I appreciate it. That went by really fast. And
it did.
Whenever you want to get together on this, I'm more than willing.
Excellent. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. And we love having you in the stream. And I look forward to you seeing you next week at the stand-up show. You think you'll be able to make it to
yeah, Friday
Flappers?
Nights are pretty much always good for me.
Oh, this is a Wednesday, though. That's the thing.
Oh, wait, Wednesday?
Yeah, it moved to Wednesday because I had to move it because of I had to move my show because of one of the upcoming Sexy Liberals. It's a travel night. And so the only night they had open was a Wednesday. So
okay.
Ta-da.
Yeah, that might be a little more difficult to do. But,
well, the nice thing is I'll send you a link. You can watch it as if.
There you go. But I can watch it remotely if nothing else.
There you go. All right. Thanks so much, Carl. Okay.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Cheers. There he goes. Ladies and gentlemen, Carl Alessi. Yay. Thanks, Carl. And Phil should be joining us in just a second. Hold on. Let me check in with, let's see if I can check in with Andrea. So far, so good. As long as he's got the right room, he should be all right. And I'll be able to bring him in. Carl, I'm going to bump you out of there so he moves into the guest one spot so that I can get him in here.
Sure.
Without too much trouble. Yeah, there we go. Excellent. And then while we're waiting, he should be logging in any minute. Now with Phil, it's it's always an issue because they've been having power outages and a lot of stuff going on. But I want to show you guys one of the main stories, of course, is the F-16s have arrived in Ukraine. And let me bring up this thing. And we will be, and let's see, hold on. Let me go to the chat room while I'm at it and just have you guys come in. Hi, chat room. Hello. What'd you think? I know we get a softer crowd sometimes when I nerd out about things and we're not talking directly about politics and stuff. But I'd like to remind everybody that that there is a huge life outside of the normal BS that we have to deal with because of the awful people that have taken over our political system, specifically the maggots around us. And so it's actually really lovely to remind everybody that every day, all day, every day, people at NASA, people in the tech industry, in the medical industry, everywhere are waking up every day trying to find a way to save lives and expand our view of the world and the universe. So, just saying. Yeah, and then yeah, there we go. Now let's see, and we'll bring this up. And no word from Philip yet. Okay, all right. Well, we'll keep in there, and he'll be here hopefully. I know they have issues with power there. Fingers, there he is. Okay, good. That's it's always good. Hey, Phil.
Hey.
I think he can hear us. 1 second. Let me bring him in, and
I can hear you. Yeah, can you
Good.
hear me?
Yeah, I can indeed. You're all good. Let me
Good.
put this in here.
Yeah.
There we go. Excellent. And close. And then 1, 2, 3. Bing. It should pop you in there in a second. The timing's perfect. There he is. Hey, there we are.
There we
Hey,
go.
Phil, how are you? Welcome. Glad you could.
Yeah, I'm
be
all
here.
right.
Yep. How's power there?
No power.
Yeah. No power.
We don't have any power. Nope.
Mm.
3-hour blackout this morning, and then we've been out of power now for 2 hours.
Wow. This is the. I was going to bring this up right away, and then I wanted to talk to you about the F-16s. But the current body count of Russians in Ukraine right now is 529,750, 1130 as of last night, and the artillery systems have been getting nailed. 14,000 of them have been hit, but 48 in the last 24 hours. There seems to be, like, as part of the new artillery system or on the Ukrainian side or the drones or something, but something stepped up and has, sped that process up a bunch. What's the basic news there, and then I'll get into what I wanted to talk to you about. And certainly, are the F-16s? Are they? Is that a part of the story yet, or are we still sort of waiting for them to arrive?
No, they're here, and the pilots are here. I would say, it's imminent. It could happen any moment, any day. I doubt that it'll happen without us knowing. I'm sorry, I'm just checking to see my power station is still working. Yeah, it is. They're not gonna hide it. They're not going to. At least this is what my sources are saying here in Kiev, is that they're not going to infiltrate them into the battlefield. That when they show up, we're going to know that they're going to make it's going to be a big splash.
Right.
It won't be, I think maybe the HIMARS are being used when this, and then a few days later we learn, oh yeah, there were HIMARS. Or, we hear there leopards, German leopard tanks on the front line. And then somebody takes a photograph of one and it's like, oh, okay, there's confirmation. When the F-16 show up, we're going to know. We're going to know immediately. I suspect, it's war. So, don't take anything as concrete. Everything is variable. But it's my understanding from my sources here that when the F-16 shows up, it will be indisputable. That it will be a big splash and it will be a major attack. It certainly does gel with what a lot of people are saying. In that it does seem like that they are concentrating on air defenses, Russian air defenses, primarily around Crimea,
right,
and internally within Crimea. That goes along with what I'm hearing here. But it's been kind of funny to watch, all the think tanks and all the kind of mill bloggers and even traditional news who don't have really a presence here anymore, sitting there going, oh well, this is what it's going to be, this is what it's going to be, and it's like, well, maybe
you didn't care till just now,
maybe,
but we'll see.
You guys aren't here,
right?
yeah. You aren't here, and you're not talking to the people I'm talking to, and also it's kind of like, wild speculations. Like I'm not stressed. I know roughly when the F-16s are going to be in the air, and we're not going to have to wait. It's not going to be a long period of waiting.
Right.
As I say, I mean, it could happen any day. I don't want to be too specific about a date that I was given, because obviously, you know, I want them to succeed, and I don't want to give away any secrets.
Yeah.
But again, when they show up, we'll know, and we can certainly see them, the Ukrainians, degrading Russia's ability to defend itself from any kind of air attack. So I would, I would expect them imminently, and we'll see what they do. We'll see how it goes. I think the pilots are here. I think the planes are here, or either the planes are here, or they are going to be flying out of airfields in Poland, which is, I mean,
but with Ukrainian pilots,
a real, I mean, yeah, Ukrainian pilots, but flying from a refuge in Poland.
Yeah.
A couple of Eastern European countries, I think Romania also has said that they would let airfields, which are already built to accommodate the F-16. There aren't a lot of airfields in Ukraine that are built to accommodate the F-16 because you need a longer runway. And every time the Ukrainians the Ukrainians already have like 3 airfields that could accommodate them, but obviously these are prime targets for the Russians. And additionally, anytime the Ukrainians try to maybe build out an airfield to accommodate F-16s, that's just going to be a huge, neon sign saying, hit here. So I think there's a possibility that they could launch from a neighboring country. But that opens up a whole other can of worms with the Russians, because you really are giving aid and comfort. I mean, more than that, you are directly involved.
You're allowing launches
from
your property, right?
Yeah. I mean, look what we did in Laos. Look at what we did in Laos in the Vietnam War. Look what we occasionally did covertly throughout the Middle East when we were fighting in Iraq. When you start giving assistance to that level and giving safe haven to an armed combatant,
right,
you are kind of becoming a participant.
You're stepping up, certainly. So, and again, you and I've talked about this, but I like the idea that Russia can fire into Ukraine, and that's not considered a breach of international law and all this shit. But if Ukraine fires back into Russia, suddenly everybody's clutching their pearls is kind of obnoxious, to say the least.
Yeah, and when it comes to artillery, and when it comes to artillery, HIMARS or ATACMS, I'm 100% behind that. Launching from a third-party sovereign nation is a new that would be a new threshold that would be passed. We'll see what happens, but long and short of it is the only missing component is the infrastructure for the F-16. The planes themselves and the pilots are ready to go. We just need to find a way to their entire support system to be built out. So anyhow, F-16s are coming.
You want to see something funny though? I enjoyed this personally. I found this very entertaining. Here, I'll play it and then we'll go. This is the Russian delegation. There's Lavrov, right? There he is.
Oh, is this Pyongyang?
Meeting with
Pyongyang or
they're in Pyongyang. This is in North Korea, and they all come in and they start getting set up. And this is like pre-video of them. This is the Russian delegation coming to meet there, and they're all kind of putting out their their notes and what they're going to talk about, and somebody's filming them as nobody isn't filmed, and somebody's like, there might be an issue. This guy basically like, there might be a problem with us. You're not supposed to enter the room until Kim Jong-un enters. You come in after he's already in. I don't know what happened to this guy's ass, the way he sat down, but it was bad. And they get chewed out for entering the room before Kim Jong-un, and they all have to pack their shit up and go back outside. so that Kim Jong-un could come in before them, and then they can enter the room. Like, it's so sweet. You could tell that they're so used to
that is the DPRK. Yeah. Well, yeah, the God King of the
Yeah.
DPRK. Of course they legitimately his whole system is built on this kind of reverence
right.
for
And also the Russians
him.
think they're
But
in
what I
charge of
also find-
everything.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I find most interesting actually, is that the Russians are taking it from a little what used to be their client state. They used to, they used to push the DPRK around a lot. I mean, they got slave labor. They would get every year. They would get slave labor from the DPRK. And
I mean, they've sent some North Koreans to the front already. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Russian Federation is going to give the
um,
DPRK planes and missiles,
embarrassing.
and in the event of a transfer of F-16s to Ukraine, that's what they said, which is obviously. Here's two things. One is, I thought North Korea was already they had ballistic missiles that could reach America with the nuclear warhead in it. So why the fuck did they need missile technology from Russia if that's the case? It's odd. And I guess never mind the fact that it's all for show. Like this is just because they need arms from it, and they won't give him any more unless Putin comes and kisses his ass. This is
Yeah.
Here's the hold on. This is the there you go. This is them meeting on the little tarmac, and I don't understand the beginning of this video. There's like a racing car, like they drove 100 miles an hour through this area. Like, get there, let's shake hands and get the fuck out of here. But they go through this, the greeting line and all this, and look at that. If you'll notice, even Putin knows not to salute the soldiers, the generals in the North Korean army the way Trump did. Oh, these poor fucking kids. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a.
Eek.
That
And this is what Trump wants. This is Trump's dream. This is look how he's gonna. That's what he is like. Look how nice this is. Yeah. Well, the trade-off for that is squalor and starvation amongst your people. And if they don't show up and parade for you, they get detained and thrown off a cliff someplace. It's just horrifying. But that's what Trump thought. Like, look how fancy. It's so lame. It's so. So on the nose for him, obviously, with his gold leaf furniture and all that shit. But man, are people honking outside?
Well, it's really hot, and I don't have any fans, so I've opened up all the windows.
Gotcha.
So you might be hearing the traffic on the main street there.
Mm-hmm. I have to say, I've only heard.
It is what it is.
Yeah, I've only heard one, there's been this sort of I think it was Kevin Sorbo or Sorbetta, who said, "I'm not going to send my kids to die in a foreign war." And what he's talking about is Ukraine, which is just bullshit. It's not. Nobody's calling for that. Nobody expects it. But the idea is that if it was involving us, it wouldn't be a foreign war. It would be a threat to the United States, and that's why we would call people up. It's just silly. But secondly, that's the only thing I've heard since the funding passed. Like, all of a sudden, it's not a threat anymore. So all of a sudden, it was going to break us. It was going to destroy the American economy. It was going to be the end of us, as a country and our sovereignty and blah, blah, blah. And then once it passed, what were we talking about? Oh, yeah, sorry. Migrant crime. It's migrant crime is the thing. They're not and now that the funding passed, they're not ragging on Ukraine the way they were. There are a couple of people who do it almost out of habit, out of muscle memory. But not, it's really odd.
Well, Marjorie, but
that's what I'm talking about.
She's either a useful idiot or she is compromised.
Yeah.
Because she's regurgitate word for word Russian talking points.
Right. And then
Yeah.
I the other thing
Wait,
too is
the whole thing. By the way, the whole thing about like I'm not going to send my kid. Well, that's the point.
Yeah,
The
that's why we're helping
Ukrainians will do the
Ukraine.
fighting.
Right,
The
so we don't have
Ukrainians
to.
will do the all we're doing is giving them money so that they can arm and defend themselves, so that we don't eventually down the road either one have to massively kick up our military spending, or two, we actually do get in a shooting war with Russia, because if they win here, they're not going to stop. And I don't mean that necessarily with tanks rolling down, the Champs-Elysees in Paris. There's lots of things that Russia could do to make it untenable.
Well, that might also be why why the DPRK, because the other thing that Korea is known for is its cyber criminals. That it is basically a giant, like hacker and cyber criminal hub. And those guys, the vast majority of them, I think they run a lot of the country. I want to say it was something in the order of like 40% of the government of the DPRK is financed through cybercrime, ransomware, theft, crypto theft, that kind of shit. Also, it's raining like crazy in Moscow still. This is the entire city and area is flooded. Yeah. Look at this guy's ceiling. Look at the ceiling bulge coming down. I don't know if you can see that, but there's laminate on the ceiling, and it's like there's they show it pouring everywhere. But look at this. What the fuck is this? What? Look at the guy's ceiling. That's full of water. That's amazing.
And they don't have the means. They don't have the means to
do anything about it.
And to regulate it. I mean, and they never. And it's not just during the war. They were like that. They've been like that for years. I mean, there's, if you live in a wealthy part of Moscow, and keep in mind that a whole chunk of Moscow is wealthy because that's kind of the way things are structured in Russia. But if you're not in a rich part of town, you don't get water management, heavy rains. You don't get, the roads get totally tore up. They're not big on civil engineering.
They're also not big on public safety either. Like the thing I see most common on the Moscow sites are these guys who ride the trains on the top and then try to touch the electrical wire. Like I've seen I can't show it, but I've seen dozens of these guys get electrocuted because they get dared to touch the thing and then they just die. It's fucking horrifying. Yeah, and that's the nice part of town. That's Moscow. That's the fancy area. You can only imagine what the idle hands in the other regions are like.
Yeah, I mean, and then out in the provinces, there's nothing to do. You're so bored that they do all sorts of crazy shit out in the provinces.
Right. Oh, I know.
It's a weird,
technically
very
in Kentucky,
deeply dysfunctional place.
I lived out in the provinces, as it were. Yeah, we know. Again, there's this running gag. There's this running gag about was it last thing a redneck says before they die? Watch this. There's a lot of similarity to that in just your generalized Russian, even in the cities, right? It's like a no wonder Trump and his crowd it's a big redneck country. The country is a bunch of bullish rednecks. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. 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 It's wild out there.
Yeah. And the other story, of course, is that as Russia went to North Korea, as Putin went to North Korea, and we're basically hand in hand, Beijing is all but ignoring it. That's the thing. China is almost pretending it's not happening, which is, it's hard to decide why that is. I think it's because they're trying to remain in some level of Western good graces as much as they can for trade purposes, and they can't.
Yes.
They know that's the end. They know that if they cross that line, and it's overt, and they're seen together with North Korea. They're like, yeah, nobody's going to buy anything from buy our crap anymore. So that's that. I think that's primarily why. But the other reason, of course, is that it's North Korea is a sock puppet for them, anyways, right? So why bother? You can have plausible deniability.
Well, and you're right to point out that like they don't want to piss off the West, because actually one of the ways that they stay in good graces and maintain diplomatic ties with, in particular, America, is by saying we can rein in this guy. We can rein in the DPRK. So don't piss us off, because if you piss us off, you're gonna cut off your conduit to the DPRK. And I've seen that diplomatic ploy from Beijing lots of times over the last few decades. So yeah, they don't. Why stir the pot? Just ignore that it's happening. And if your Western counterparts say, "Hey, why didn't you say something?" They just go, "Well, it's their business."
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, good Lord.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. There is this kind of
thing.
Yeah. I'm not even sure where. We've been talking about this a bit and trying to figure out where Russia goes after this, if at all. And there was a talk about, we talked about this last year, that there were times when where Russia is teetering to the point where, nothing happens, then everything happens. That if we're not prepared for what happens, when that collapse comes, because if he gets sniped or knocked off or keels over or whatever, or flees the country or goes and hides in one of his multi-billion-dollar mansions, in Austria or Africa or I don't know, Cambodia, wherever he's built some sort of like bug out site for himself. Whenever that happens, that turn is the shift of like people trying to seek out nukes and get their hands on them. That's one of the big fears. The loose nukes idea, that was the big fear after 91. That's going to be a big fear. They've got to be roundtables right now, gaming this out and just going like any day
100%.
now. Yeah.
No, I'm sure in both state and at the Pentagon, they're gaming it out. I mean, if they're not, it's a gross, dereliction of duty. I can't imagine that they're not playing out. As a matter of fact, I mean, one of the biggest criticisms that the Ukrainians express when they talk about Western aid, and in particular American aid, is that they're really frustrated with this escalation management, is what like Jake Sullivan calls it. And there's this overall kind of there's a camp that believes in trying to manage escalation. And I think part of that mentality is not really about nukes, because I think most people recognize that nukes are not part of the equation. Because if Moscow uses a nuke, then it's all over. It's done on so many different levels. And as a matter of fact, in our last episode of On the Edge, we talked about that a little bit. About it's also really hard to tell your people you're winning in a war if you have to use a nuke. So that would kind of rip the veil off the fact that Russia is losing here for their own domestic consumption within Russia. But I don't think the managed escalation camp is worried about nukes. I think they are worried about the disintegration of the Russian Federation and what it would mean if there is a massive defeat, if if the Russian Federation, because of the way Putin has, not just Putin, but centuries of Russian leadership, but in particular, Putin making himself indispensable, is that when the center is ripped out and there's a vacuum, that all the gravitational powers that circle around Putin and the Kremlin will suddenly fly off into their own orbit. And I think that's a legitimate concern. I do. I think it's a legitimate concern. I don't think it is legitimate enough to let Ukrainians continue to die needlessly.
Right.
And I think that there are contingencies that we could do after Russia is repelled from Ukraine. But I think worrying about what will happen in Moscow when they get their asses handed to them, and that's coming. I mean, it is coming. They're going to lose this war. There's just they don't have the capacity. They just don't have the means to do what it is that they think that they need to do here in Ukraine. Because just the land bridge and just Crimea, I don't think that's going to be enough to have lost 500,000 soldiers, to have become a pariah state, to have completely destroyed their economy. Anything short of taking Ukraine as a whole, or making Ukraine a landlocked country, and by that I mean Russian troops that go all the way through Odessa over to
Moldova,
to Moldova,
Transnistria, right?
That ain't going to happen either. I mean, they're never going to take Odessa. I've been to Odessa several times, and it's a fortress. The place is a freaking fortress.
Somebody in the chat just asked, does Putin have a successor? Catherine Kelly asked that in there. And there isn't, but there's a new report from the Institute for the Study of War that says Putin is trying to prepare likely successors to his regime from among his children and other relatives. So he's trying to find a family member that he could pass it off to. He dismissed 4 deputy defense ministers and replaced them with a close relative, the son of a former Russian prime minister and an economist, on June 17th, and an ongoing purge of officials in the Russian Ministry of Defense, the report says. On the 17th, he fired deputy defense ministers Nikolai Pankov, Ruslan Sulikov, Tatiana Shevstova, and Army General Pavel Popov, replacing them with deputy defense ministers Anna Tsivilyev and Pavel Fradkov, as well as first deputy defense minister Leonid Gornin. Anna Tsivilyeva is Putin's first cousin once removed. She's a niece. Wife of the recently appointed Minister of Energy, Sergei Tsivilev, and head of the Kremlin-initiated Defenders of the Fatherland. She was also a previous member of the Council on Issues of Trusteeship. Pavel Fradkov is the son of former Prime Minister and Director of Foreign Intelligence Service, Mikhail Fradkov, served as the first deputy head of the presidential administration. Leonid Gornin served as this deputy minister, and Tsivilyev and Fradkov and Gornin's appointment support Putin's efforts to introduce his relatives and the children of other senior Russian officials to the Russian public, and to install economic advisors to the Ministry of Defense to improve the wartime economy. Oops.
Sorry.
You make me nervous. Yeah.
No, I just talked to him.
All right. But yeah,
I mean,
so
he's dreaming.
Yeah,
that's
it's ridiculous.
No, that's not going to do it. That's not going to do it.
I agree.
He's. Let me just fix my camera there.
That's okay.
It's almost like he's taking a page out of Yeltsin's book, because that's how Yeltsin was eventually convinced. Well, actually, it wasn't Yeltsin, because Yeltsin was already non compos mentis. But his family were given certain guarantees by the incoming Putin guys. That, okay, we'll make arrangements for you. You can just disappear. Nobody's going to prosecute you. Nobody's going to chase you down. And if that's
thank you.
If that's what's in Putin's mind right now, he's delusional. He's delusional. He hasn't done the work to establish somebody, even somebody within his close circle, or a relative, to take over the reins of power. It sounds to me like it's more like circling the wagons.
Yes.
Not trying to find a successor.
Well, there's evidence of that specifically, in that there was a shift in Putin's security detail, in that right now, for the first time ever, he has a fighter jet escort on domestic flights around the country. So instead of, that's not uncommon when they fly overseas, they have military planes flying with them. But he's got, specifically, he has just in internal domestic flights. And that could be fear of ATACMS. It could be fear of, missile attack and all kinds of other stuff. He could fear that some rogue F-16 fighter, from Ukraine just decides to go for it. Hey, if our drones made it, maybe I can make it too. And just decides to, to make a beeline for him. maybe that's his fear, but it's true, and it's a real fear that he has, and it's something he was not worried about like 2 months ago.
Yeah.
That's a huge
Or
that's a
or,
huge
or
step.
like that something could come up, like a man pad, basically somebody with a a shoulder launched anti-aircraft missile taking out his presidential plane was never something that he had to worry about domestically within Russia, and maybe now he does.
Yep.
Maybe now he does. It's all coming apart,
Yes.
and it's not going to get better.
No.
It's not going to get any better for him, and things are about to go very badly here in Ukraine for Russian forces between the F-16s and the $60 billion and we're already starting to see a decrease in the disparity between what Russia can fire in their artillery shells and what Ukraine can fire. At one point in the darkest days, it was almost like for every 10 shells the Russians could fire, the Ukrainians could only get off one round. And we've cut that in half already. And that was 2 weeks ago. I think, them saying that it's now down to 5-1, which is still not great. But to go from 10 to 5, to cut it in half in such a short period of time, what happens when things really get going. And we're also seeing the West move to its own war production footing. Everybody talks about how Russia's economy is on a war footing. Well, it is. But when you're in a dictatorship, when you're in an authoritarian regime, you can make that happen just instantly by edict. Democracies are harder. But we are starting to see Western democracies building more factories, increasing production. If as long as we stay the course, as long as we don't lose our resolve, which I'm cautiously optimistic we will maintain our resolve, because the people who are making decisions know what it will mean if the West loses here. It will be catastrophic on so many different levels. So the longer this goes, and the more that the Western democracies can kind of not coerce, but manage their very difficult democracies, that the longer it goes, the more that military economy can be instrumented. So I Russia's not looking at a very bright future when it comes to this war. And then also, everybody also screams about all what happened with the MEPs, with the European parliamentary elections. That's kind of the right wing made some advances there. Well, yes, but also there were a lot of elements within the European Parliament that were anti-Ukraine support, and they got ousted for those who were. Now, they also might happen to be, kind of right wing or center right or what have you, right or conservative at the very least. But support for Ukraine is not being undermined in the European Parliament.
Most of it. I got to say, there are two things, interestingly enough, that I think that are overlooked in terms of the right-leaning members of the parliament that we're talking about. One is that it has less to do with Russia, Ukraine, and more to do with immigration from non-European countries. It is a direct knee-jerk reflex reaction to that. On the other side of it, the very people that are in the political world in those countries that are against it know full well that Russia and China have both had a hand in facilitating that rush of people, from non-European countries to European countries. They are paying the passage. They are encouraging it. They are, posting stuff in newspapers, and they're like on TikTok. They're literally like these. They will teach you how to get from El Salvador to the United States border on TikTok. That is specifically run by the Chinese government to destabilize the U.S. political system to reinstall Donald Trump is what they think they're doing. And it's not going to work, but that's what they're shooting for. The issue
and they're doing it here too.
Yeah, of course. What I'm saying is the like if you look at the right wingers in France or in Germany even that are making a play, they also know, those people also know that Russia is pushing those people into their country to destabilize it. But it's not like they're doing them a favor where, like, once they're in, they'll stop. Russia's going to just do them a solid and get them in office. Russia wants all of Europe destabilized permanently. They don't want to, like, you know, they know they're not going to be installed. You can't install a nationalist like Marie Le Pen, for example, and then sock puppet her. What she wants is kind of equal dominance as a fellow authoritarian. Russia doesn't want that. Russia wants sock puppets like, you know, in Belarus. And that's not going to stand. That they won't stand for that. So that's the one drawback, is that it's not going to help them in the Ukraine war, and it's not going to help them going forward because they're seeding a lot of this shit.
Yeah. I mean, there was a 2015 report put out by NATO. I remember it very well. 2015.
Yeah.
The Supreme Allied Commander Philip Breedlove comes out and he heralds this report saying the Russians, we have information, we have intelligence that shows that Russia is weaponizing immigration. And it 100% is. I mean, they absolutely are. And not only are they weaponizing immigration and sending in, like from Syria, people, Russian involvement in Syria, or, take your pick, their involvement in Africa.
Right.
Trying to kind of push migrants into Europe. But in addition to the stress that causes, they're also internally within European nations creating friction between communities, including Muslim communities. There's this very famous case up in Sweden. I want to say it's Sweden. It could have been Norway, Scandinavian country. I'm pretty sure it was Sweden, of the Quran book burnings. Have you?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you've heard these stories. Well, it turns out that those guys burning the Quran, they were kind of extremist, quote unquote, journalists who had been receiving money from the GRU.
Yeah.
So it's not even actually like the far right burning Qurans to like protest against immigration. It's Russians like just causing chaos wherever they can. Of course, the famous story in the U.S. in Texas of them fomenting protests across the street from one another.
Right.
They don't. It's. I know I sound like a broken record when I talk about this, but it just has to be said over and over again. Russia's intent is to sow chaos and division. It's the only way they think they can win in a conflict with the West, and they consider themselves at war with the West, and in particular with us. So they're trying to tear us apart.
They can't have, like, Putin and his ilk can't have equals. They have to have subsidiaries, and that's it. And anybody who even thinks they can be an equal, even as an authoritarian, it has got a target on their back. It's just a matter of time. And even with this stuff with China and North Korea, like China and Russia are both eyeing each other for who's the most subservient. Right now, Russia's on the downside of this, but the idea is that they're not against the occasional rope-a-dope, and they might think that, well, yeah, currently they've got the leg up, but they're on a real backslide too, and boy, do they have a lot of land and buildings with nobody in it that we'd like to take. Like, it's clear. So this is an article from the Washington Post from a couple of years ago. This is in 2022. This was when, if you'll recall, they were Belarus and Russia were pushing like Russians to the Polish border and to the Finnish border and trying to like and shipping like people from like Uzbekistan and places like that who had made it into Russia, taking those people and just shoving them at the border and basically saying, walk. And if you can't get in, you can't come back. So you're just going to get killed. So they storm the gates, essentially. Same thing is happening over here. The biggest Russian embassy in the world is in Mexico City.
Yeah.
And the fact that there's a reason for that. Exactly. And it has nothing to do with their long-standing relationship with the Mexican people and their trade and an embargo and tariff fights over the years or territorial fights. It's because of the United States. It's and by the way, and they manipulate the politics of that down there. They're parked off Cuba right now. Now I will say.
Yeah.
And this is, by the way,
Yeah.
this is all over. Yeah. This is MIT Center for International Studies. When migrants become weapons. This is an article that they wrote about this, about the fall of 2021 when they were using this and how it's increasing. Authoritarians are using migrants as weapons. The White House frets it's on the rise. The White House is growing more worried about migration being used as a weapon. This is a related one. This is an interview done on NPR about it. But this is, again, they are directing people to borders of a lot of countries, not just ours, to try and destabilize them. And the Russians don't have a problem with migration in this regard. They just send them to fight in Ukraine or ship them out or jail them or kill them. They don't care. Yeah. We follow the international asylum rules. We follow, we view them as human beings. And so they've got us on our heels in dealing with them because we will always react to them as human beings first. And that's it's a consistent issue.
When we're at our best. There are elements within us that don't look at migrants as humans, but I agree with you. The vast majority.
We legally do. Even if dumbasses like Trump run things,
you're right.
Even
right.
Even his own Supreme Court.
We're bound.
Yeah, because we've decided to be. But that's the point. This is and it's pretty ubiquitous. Interestingly enough, this is an article from 2022 from the Heritage Foundation. Russia's weaponization of migrants hasn't gone away. I just want people to know that Republicans are aware of this even while they talk, about the border and all this kind of stuff. And there's a mix of Republicans who know that Russia is doing this, and they're like, oh, good, this helps us. And Russia's basically supplying us with arms against the Biden regime. That's how they look at it.
It's so sick and twisted that they would do that. I mean, and... Yeah. Also that they would be like, oh, that helps us. Well, here's the problem. Here's one of many problems. At the top of the list is Russia has no good intent towards America. None whatsoever. It's not like they think, oh, we can find a way to change America and we can find, some way to coexist on the globe. It's binary. Everything in Russia. Russia's painting with a very large brush here, but culturally, Russia approaches power dynamics very differently than we do. And for them, everything is a binary equation. Somebody wins, somebody loses. And they don't see a world in which things can be mutually beneficial between America and Russia unless one is dominant over the other, and they fully intend to be the dominant one over America. And so they have long fixated on ways to hurt us. And and so to have the Republicans knowing that the Russians are behind this and yet still capitalizing on it it's treasonous. It's traitorous. Yeah. There's, and I know those words carry a lot of weight, but it's applicable. It really is, because Russia wants to hurt us. They have no good intent towards America, because America must fall or be subservient to Russia ultimately, because ultimately somebody's going to be on top and somebody is going to be subservient. And that's their perception of all power dynamics, and certainly international power dynamics, and certainly dynamics between Russia and America, who they see as their primary enemy when it comes to the decadent West. So, for Republicans to do that, you are taking up the goals of the enemy. And I don't like speaking in those terms, but the Russians consider themselves to be our enemy. They have made that decision, and they're living that out. And so for these Republican jackasses to be doing this with self-stated enemies of the United States, there needs to be consequences. Vote every damn one of them out. It's just words fail me. It is so awful, and it's just like Putin is like, oh, I really care about Christian nationalists in America. He doesn't give a damn about anything in America. He doesn't give a damn about any group or any like identity or belief, or he cares. He gives zero shits about America.
Yeah.
All he wants to do is destroy it, is to bring it to its knees, because ultimately in a world dominated by like somebody's a winner, somebody's a loser, he fully intends that Russia's going to be a winner. And so they're not fellow travelers. Russia intends to do us grave harm, and if you help or support, knowingly help or support Russia in destabilizing, even if you think, I'll win over the Democrats.
Yeah. Here's a great example, and I don't know that I wanted to put this together so people could see it.
Here come the motorcyclists.
Nice.
There's a bike club that loves to go up and down this main street here.
Cool.
So there they go.
Yeah.
There they go.
So one of the first world leaders to support Putin's attack on Ukraine was Daniel Ortega, the Nicaraguan president. Right? He was one of the first persons to come in, and there's been direct like trade and relations, and it's been this power struggle in South America between Russia and China, and Ortega is soundly in Russia's camp. Okay, right? So here's Nicaragua's Ortega defends Russia's stance over Ukraine. This is in February of 2022. He's been with them since the very beginning, and seriously, he supports Russia. They have ongoing dialogue. Okay. Then let's look at, I believe is it this one?
He would, wouldn't he?
Hold on, this would be it. Where to go? Hold on. Let me find the other article real quick, and then quit it. I have too many articles open. Give me 1 second. It's the wrong page. I see. It's this guy. Sorry, I opened up the wrong browser. Here you go. So this is Ortega defends Russia's stance. All right, yeah, there you go. Meanwhile, Nicaragua's weaponization of migrants. So 2 years later, 2 years on into Russia's war, what's the main country that is weaponizing migration into the United States? Not just of his own people, of which there have been like somewhere between 150,000 and 400,000 displaced because of his authoritarian regime, but they have been facilitating, where is it down here? The like acting as like a way station. Ortega's taking advantage of a shift that seems to be happening in global migrant routes and flows as more citizens from Asia and Africa, from China, India, Mauritania, and Guinea, for example, are leaving their homelands in a quest to reach the United States border. With a novel migrant scheme, Ortega and his vice president and wife, Rosario Murillo, have accomplished a few things. It's a way to stick it to the Biden administration, earn leverage to push the United States to at least consider coming to the table and negotiating lifting the sanctions, intensify chaos at the border by facilitating migrants' travel while also making money in the process. Ortega has ruled the small Central American nation since 2007 with an increasingly oppressive and authoritarian government. According to press reports, Ortega has shut down hundreds of civic society organizations and most media outlets, overseen a systematic crackdown on the Catholic Church, pushed nearly all the opposition into exile. A November poll showed that half of Nicaraguan population wants to leave the country, up from 35% 5 years ago. That's why the U.S. government has imposed several types of targeted sanctions, including trade and sectoral sanctions, as well as asset blockades, visa restrictions on hundreds of Nicaraguan officials. The latest round came in November against the people involved in the charter flight scheme. Now, what's that? Okay, so he was organizing booming migrant charter flights to Nicaragua, prompt U.S. crackdown. You know how Trump is always going, they're sending crazy people and they're insane asylums and jails and blah, blah. Okay, that's not at all what's happening. These guys are simply operating as travel agents for people who want to come to the United States, many of whom, ironically enough, but for the racial chaos they create amongst right-wingers, would be valuable U.S. citizens who actually give a shit about living in freedom and being, I don't know, entrepreneurial and wanting to be alive and in control of their own lives. So Cuban and Haitian migrants are increasingly taking chartered flights to Nicaragua from where they seek to travel overland to the United States, prompting Washington to impose sanctions this week on the operations of the aircraft. Irma Perez, a 28-year-old Cuban, told AFP she arrived at the Nicaraguan capital, Managua, last month aboard a charter flight run by Mexican aviation firm Viva Aerobus. We had a 45-minute layover in Cancun without disembarking and then came to Managua. Perez was speaking from Mexico after she, her husband, and her 1-year-old son traveled there overland with the help of a smuggler. By the way, I got to say, for the most part, I don't find these folks scary at all. A family with a 1-year-old is not concerning, but I'm sure they don't. It's just whoever can pony up is the point. But Via Airbus does not advertise flights between Cuba and Nicaragua on its website and did not respond to AFP's request for comment because they're government flights.
Yeah.
Because to help Russia and to gain favor with Vladimir Putin, Daniel Ortega is migrant bombing the United States. And it's not they're emptying out their jails and any of that shit. They're just being a transport hub and making money off of it. They are part of the cartel problem that's on the border, for example, where they pay people to smuggle things in or smuggle children in or smuggle drugs in or weapons out. So you get sent, send some guns out, and then if you get caught, we'll send you back in. We'll keep sending you back in if you'll be part of the gun running. That's the other thing. So this is, this isn't something that's just on Fox News. This is like NPR did an entire thing on this. There's plenty of evidence that this is a coordinated attack. And it's interesting because I feel like you talk about a nonpartisan or at least a bipartisan issue where people could kind of get on board with this could have passed the border bill. This story, if people knew about the fact that Ortega and Putin are thick as thieves and that Ortega is using migrants as a weapon on the southern border, that would have if that had been in the mainstream media, like on the scale that it should be, if it had been on cable news when the border bill was up, if Fox had talked about it during that time, that border bill would have passed.
Yeah, potential 100%.
Yeah.
I say 100%. The potential is there for it. Yeah. Look,
they're gonna keep doing this.
We have got to wake the fuck up.
Yeah.
Russia is at war with us, directly. They consider themselves at war with us.
Right.
We hate this idea. We are scared shitless. We don't like war. We don't want to engage with war. Nobody is a warmonger when it comes to Russia, except for some extreme nut jobs. I am very concerned about Russia. I am angry at Russia. I am anti-Russia in the sense of I have seen what they have done here. I see what they do on the global stage. But war is not necessarily the answer. There were a lot of things that we could have done. But the sooner our population in the United States recognizes that we're at a state of war with Russia, not because we want it, not because we
I would say they are at war with us. They have declared war on us subtly and not overtly. Yeah,
but then by default we are at war with them. We
in a war.
They are at war with us, and we are in a war with them that they created, that they are instigating, and so by default, not by our intent, we are engaged in a war that Russia is waging against us. Is that more palatable? I don't know.
Yes,
but one way or the other, we have to wake up to the fact that Russia isn't fucking around, and Russia means to do us real grievous harm. The in America, in the homeland, absolutely. In Western Europe, in breaking the transatlantic alliance, in creating chaos in all sorts of regions around the world, including Africa and the Middle East. This is it for them, and they know it. When they say this is an existential, again, it's bizarre to think that an existential threat could be in Ukraine, on the territory of another sovereign country, outside of their borders. But it is, they see it as an existential threat, and this is it. It's do or die for them in many different ways. Their perspective is so they are engaging in activities to really hurt us badly. And as we get closer and closer to the election, I'm sure that they will be pulling all sorts of tricks out.
Sure.
Yeah. So we better and this is just one tactic, this whole weaponization of immigration thing.
Right.
And it's probably going to be their primary attack, but it won't be their only one. There'll be cyber attacks. Who knows at what scale? There will be information warfare. There will be all sorts of really nasty things happening. And it's because they cannot live without the concept of empire. They don't know who they are if they are not empire. And this is the cornerstone of their empire. So if you take away Ukraine, they don't know who they are anymore. And it's an existential threat to them. It's not our fault. That's we did not initiate
Russia.
this war.
It's because Georgia and Chechnya are like the outback. They don't really care about it as much. It's not as it's not. It doesn't have the Russian identity that Ukraine does. It's just territory.
Right. Yes.
Just they don't even like the
strategically
people.
important.
Right.
No, not particularly. No, they don't. It's funny you bring that up. I just had our next interview after Bill Browder on this Sunday is an individual who literally echoed exactly what you just said. Yeah, they don't like the Caucasus. They don't have a pan-Slavic identity. It's strategically important for them because the isthmus that leads down into kind of the Middle East and Iran and all the rest of it it's often described as their soft underbelly. They really do care about Belarus in particular and Ukraine especially, because it defines them as empire. And who are we if we are not empire? Is the mentality in Russia. So we have to wake up, and including the Republicans. I don't know if that'll ever happen because the Republican Party is so just off the tether. It's just out there. But it would be good if at least some of the Republicans, just all Americans should recognize the threat from Russia, and it's not abstract and it's not slight.
It's specific. It's very violent. The closer you get to it, the worse it gets. As far as Europe's first on the chopping block. But there was a story the other day, and I want to say it was like it might have been the Washington Post about a couple that were arrested in Indonesia pretending to be they're just people, expats who moved to Indonesia or whatever from Argentina. Turns out they were a Russian couple, basically just a sleeper cell, like old 70s shit that the Russians just have never stopped doing. It's weird.
Well, they get more bang for their buck. They get their more bang for their buck because they can't outproduce us. As big as they are and as much industrial might as they have, there's just no comparison. They know that if we ever go toe to toe with NATO, they're going to lose. Yeah. But they can do espionage. They can do, dirty tricks. They can, the power's back. Hey, there we go.
Look at that. That's a happy ending.
See the lights? There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. That's where they think they can do the most damage. Because, battleships, tanks, they're expensive. Yes. A couple pretending to be from Argentina that they can place, in some strategic location somewhere in Asia.
Yep.
How much does that cost? Yeah.
Right.
No. It's
I
don't mean to be
and
doom
they
and
have to
gloom,
get a
and
job
I don't want
and pay for themselves.
Yeah.
They might get some subtle support, but yeah. So well,
and I don't mean to be alarmist, and I'm not for an open conflict with Russia,
Right.
but we have to change our posture when it comes to Russia and recognize that they really do intend us harm. It's not some kind of pie in the sky idea. If you listen to them long enough, if you watch what they do, they want to hurt us badly. And turn us against one another and use our own might against us and our own liberties and our own rights and all the rest of it.
Our belief system. Turn the positives into a negative and the negative into a positive.
That's right.
For yourself. Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it ain't going to work, I don't think.
No.
But certainly one of the best things we can do is stay the course here in Ukraine. So
that's right.
Yeah.
Everybody check out On the Edge, Philip Bittner's podcast that's now available
Bill
on his
Browder
YouTube
this
page.
week.
And he's got Bill Browder this week.
Bill Browder this Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great
It's
stuff.
a good one.
So appreciate it, brother. Thank you so much. Take care of yourself. And now that the lights are back on, go to your local craft brew place and get a meal and hang out with
nice
people.
cold beer and a burger. Yeah.
That's right.
All right, man. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
All right. Cheers.
All right. See ya.
There he goes. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, Philip Bittner. Yes, and I will. This will be available. This show will be available on the podcast as well. Just saying, YouTube transforms some of these into a podcast if I just put them on this particular playlist, so they will be there. Just letting you know, because I think both hours today were very informative and fun, and kind of on the first hour, certainly a good conversation about stuff we should be able to talk about just in general and back to normal life. And then, of course, the second hour, something that is crucial to our understanding of what's going on in Ukraine right now. That said, later on this afternoon, I will have more on the information that has come out from the document spill about Ted Cruz and all the documents that came out from Trump's hush money trial, which is now, hold on one second. It is now posted online, which is fabulous. And I guess in a lot of ways, let's see who we got kind of leaning up. We got a lot of freak out going on the right. It seems like they're hunting for a new talking point before Steve Bannon goes to jail. They're they're throwing everything against the wall to see what sticks. That seems to be where we are right now. And then, of course, Jimmy Dore is worried that Trump's going to lose. But we don't have to deal with him because it's just gross. But anyways, love you guys. I'll see you later. Take care of yourself. We have a bot in the chat. Oh, we're right on. Hi, bot. Hi, maggots. Hello. If you're in here, if you're real, if you're not real, that's cool. And I think, who was it that answered? Cheryl. Yes, I got your Venmo. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And then also, if I may, there's an announcement. I don't know. This just came up on my phone. Mark Cuban has offered full support to Biden with an 800% match on fundraising, apparently. So that's cool. That helps immensely. So anyways, much love to you guys. I will see you later this afternoon for the regular afternoon show. Take care of yourself and take care of somebody else. And what does this button do? Now I got to go try and fix all the Wi-Fi in the house. I get to do tech support for the next 3 hours. Love you guys.